Hi, everybody who's joining our webinar today. Good morning to you, whether you are in Sweden or the UK or anywhere else around the world. Delighted to see you coming in. We'll get started in just a couple of moments. Hope for all of our Swedish participants, you had a great midsummer. Ricard told me it was maybe a little colder than ideally for Swedish midsummer. Do let us know how low the temperatures dropped wherever you were. I'm in Dublin, Ireland today, and it's about as warm as it ever gets in Ireland, which is probably as cold as it was for you over midsummer. Great to have you on, and we'll get started in a couple of moments.
Actually, Stephen, I think we have some kind of a record temperature today. So,
oh, right.
Reaching about 30 degrees. So,
okay, fantastic.
Also remember to drink water, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Wow, 30 degrees is fantastic.
For Sweden.
Yeah.
And for staycation.
Yeah,
that's great.
It is. We're all adjusting our holiday plans dramatically, but good to have good weather and long days as well. Great. So, conscious of people's times this morning, for people who are joining maybe a little bit after the top of the hour, we are recording the session in any case, so we'll be able to share it with you. So why don't we just get started? So thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Co-hosted by myself, Stephen Walsh and Anders Pink, and Ricard at Xtractor. We're going to be talking about continuous learning and content curation, what those mean, why they matter, and how to make that happen inside your learning platform. And we're also joined today by three other people. So we have my colleague Michelle, Ricard's colleague Eric, and they are available to answer any questions that you have in the chat or in the Q&A. So at any time during the session today, please do drop in any questions or comments that you have. We'll keep an eye on that and we'll respond to those, and we'll allow time at the end for questions as well. So we want this to be as interactive and as open as possible. So ask away in Swedish or English. And also we are joined, delighted to say, by Lars Kilander from Scania. Scania, a key client for Anders Pink in the Swedish market. And Lars, later on in this session, is going to share a little bit about Scania's experience with content curation and helping to drive a different learning culture within Scania as well. So we're delighted to have Lars on the line as well today. So Ricard, do you want to maybe introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your new landscape for learning?
Yeah, I would. And I think most of the people here know me and Xtractor quite well. But what about you, Stephen? Who are you?
Yes, who am I indeed? Good question. So I'm a co-founder of Anders Pink. Anders Pink is a content curation tool that plugs into any learning platform or environment to help you stay up to date. I've spent about 25 years in learning and technology. I co-founded Kineo in the UK, which in itself was a co-founder of Totara. So very familiar with the platform and delighted to be presenting with you today.
Thank you. Yeah, we could move on. So the times are special, needless to say, perhaps. This actually is going back to the pre-corona world, which seems like a long time ago, but it was, of course, at least here in Europe, most parts of Europe, only 3.5 months ago. We did a customer event in Stockholm with about 100 participants, and we did it physically, which now feels really, really strange. Anyhow, if you go a little bing here, the agenda for that full day was a new landscape for learning, which we introduced, as well as guest speakers and partners and experts and clients. It ranged from various topics, of course, data and the future of AI, also in relation to learning, and HR was, of course, addressed. We talked about getting inspiration from marketing departments, which I guess you could say that this webinar today also has some similarities with. The digital transformation, of course, is one of the big changes, and needless to say again, if we had done the event a few days later, it would have been transformed into a digital format. The learner experience, sort of say in the same manner that we're moving from user interface to user experience, we're also moving into thinking of the whole learner journey. We're talking about learner experiences, employee experiences, client experiences, and so on. But perhaps the main tangible and sort of concrete change that we see starting already now was regarding learning ecosystem. A little bit, yeah, thanks. And this has two perspectives, I guess. The main one being your perspective as a client to us, or another one, but for your organization to think of a learning ecosystem. Perhaps in the old days, an LMS and perhaps an authoring tool was kind of enough. Then you had the tools to provide e-learning, you had the tools to manage instructor-led training or classroom training, and that was pretty much it. We're seeing a real change here. It's not only learning technologies which are sort of visible on this screen, but it's also the other tools you already possess in your organization. In the last few months, we've seen, of course, people starting to use tools like this one, Zoom, or Teams, or maybe Facebook Workplace or Slack, etc. Collaboration tools and productivity tools that are also already being used for learning. And we want to embrace that kind of ecosystem concept. From Xtractor's point of view, these are the parts that we want to assist our clients with, one or many of those parts. It could address formal learning, which has been sort of the primary ambition for an LMS, a learning management system. It could be more informal learning, where you have this new concept of learning experience platforms. It could relate to performance, and of course, aggregate data, collect data, and also being able to analyze the effects of those learning initiatives is one key. If you go a little bing, this is a new introduction for you who were at the customer event. We didn't have this nice little arrow, but when we think of content, traditionally it has been, at least here in Sweden, to a large extent bespoke, either created by our clients themselves or by partners like Xtractor. There is also the concept of the off-the-shelf learning or learning catalogs, where Xtractor has one small one. And we did have curated content on the list, but we didn't really have the time to dive into that back then. But today we will definitely do that. And as you can see on this sort of logo mania screen, the new kid on the block for us is the AP logo, Anders Pink logo. It's a new partnership for us, and we are really excited about it. In our view, an important part when we decide who to partner with, it can be Tutara, H5P, Learning Pool, and now Anders Pink. The first sort of criteria is, of course, that it's a great partner and a great product by itself. But almost as important for us is that the products, the tools, the apps can easily integrate and be a part of the puzzle, so that those systems and tools can speak to each other very easily, and they can also speak and communicate with other systems, again, like Slack or Teams. And that's definitely true with Anders Pink, as I hope we will all see. So we could get back to you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Rickard, and it's great to see you evolving your ecosystem in such a way, and we're delighted to be part of it and to be a partner with you guys. And you know, in my experience, this concept of an ecosystem has become increasingly important to enable organizations to power continuous learning and continuous development of skills within the organization. Why do we think that's important? Well, I think there's a couple of things to consider there. One, and this headline has a little bit of drama around it. The world is facing a reskilling emergency. It's not me being dramatic. It's actually the World Economic Forum. And there's some quite frightening statistics that they shared in a report that they wrote earlier this year, actually before the current pandemic, back in January 2020, where they point out more than 1 billion people are going to need to be reskilled over the next 10 years as all industries change. You know, 42% of the core skills that people are required to perform existing jobs are going to change, and the type of skills are going to change as well. There's going to be hard skills and soft skills to become relevant. That at kind of a macro global level says to me, if we're operating in learning and in learning and development, we need to be thinking constantly about how do we reskill and upskill organizations. And there's been quite a lot of reports recently about organizations embarking on reskilling and upskilling journeys, and obviously keeping people up to date on what's happening and what's changing. And that's, you know, more important now than ever. quite like what Tom Hood had to say about this in a world of rapid change and increasing complexity, which I think we're very much in right now. The winners will be those whose rate of learning is greater than the rate of change and greater than the rate of competition. So it's about constantly staying ahead of the curve, continuing to develop yourself, your teams, and your organization. One of the challenges with that, of course, is skills don't stand still. They develop over time. The skills that are relevant to us to perform well, to be employable, to be successful in our careers keep on changing. So if we're working for 60 or 70 years, we're going to change jobs probably every 4 or 5 years. And the skills that we develop over time are going to change. They only have a certain amount of shelf life, and they depreciate in terms of value and relevance. So it's not what you learned yesterday. It's about what are you going to learn today, tomorrow, next week. So it's important to keep on developing and keep on learning. And various business leaders have kind of confirmed this. Randall Stevenson at AT&T has said to everyone at AT&T, you need to spend 5 to 10 hours a week. And he doesn't say completing courses. He says staying on top of the fire hose of new information. So that idea of information coming at you, you need to stay on top of it, or otherwise we're going to decline and we're going to fall behind. Now you may argue, is 5 hours right? Is 10 hours right? Is that too much? Is that too little? The point is to do it, is to stay up to date, to invest in yourself and to continuously develop your skills. Satya Nadella at Microsoft says something very similar. He would prefer to hire learn-it-alls than know-it-alls. So he's less interested in what you knew coming in or what's on your CV or your LinkedIn profile. It's how adaptable are you to change and to continuing to develop. And then down the road at Google, they say something very similar, which is learnability, which I think is a made-up word, but if Eric Schmidt says it, I'm happy to believe it as a word. That's the key skill. It's about looking for learning animals, so people who are constantly looking to develop and grow and add new skills, reskill and upskill themselves. And when we talk to learning professionals, and I'm sure you hear this as well, Ricard, is most people say, of course we want to do that. Of course we want to build a culture in our organizations where people are embracing lifelong learning, continuous skills developments. We want to do it for ourselves. We want to do it for our teams, but it's not easy. It's not easy to switch your culture to be all about an ecosystem that helps you to stay up to date all the time on the topics that matter to you. A couple of reasons that it's not difficult, and these are, I think, challenges that are constants in learning and development, is time and budget. Most people want to support this idea of bringing more learning into the workflow, and to use Josh Berson's phrase, into the flow of work, but they don't have the time to create it or commission it or build it all. And they don't have the time to go out looking for it all manually from across the web either. And also learners don't have the time either. You know, one of the big pieces of feedback that learners give is from LinkedIn Learning Trends Report, and the report that came out last month confirmed that this stat hasn't really changed that much, is learners feel they just do not have time. They want to learn, but they just do not have time. And I think part of the challenge around that is how learning is presented to them. So this is a piece of research from Jane Harsh, the Workplace Learning Survey, where every year she asks learners, tell me from most important to least important, what forms of learning you find valuable in the workplace. And it tells some interesting stories. I think it says, of course, learning on the job is the most important thing for all of us, and it always has been. But around the top here, you also see a cluster of patterns around knowledge sharing, web search, professional networks, web resources. All of these ranked really highly in terms of their value for learners. Down at the bottom of the list, classroom training, conferences, and e-learning. Now, that's not to say we should not do those things. Of course, they should always be part of the mix or the blend, if you prefer. But the point is, learners are expressing a preference for, we want to stay up to date with short, focused content that can come into our networks, that we can easily access and we can easily share with each other. And I think that's really important for us in learning and development to think about, how do we play a role in surfacing that content, aggregating it and curating it for them. And that's hard to do. You know, learners tell us, and they tell IDC and Towards Maturity, we get lots of value from external content, but it's hard work. It's hard work to find it. And if we just kind of think about ourselves as individuals, as learners, you know, when you go out to Google or you start browsing through Twitter or LinkedIn, it's easy to get overwhelmed pretty quickly. Mark Schaefer calls that content shock. You know, when you get that effect of, I'm never going to keep up with all this stuff. There's just too much information coming at me. If I go Googling tips for sales and I get 180 million results, I'm probably not going to read all of those, or a quarter of 1% of one of those. So that can be quite overwhelming for us, and can be quite overwhelming for our organization. So if we are saying to people, well, just go out and Google it, you'll find the answer yourself, that's not particularly helpful in terms of our role as people who help to drive the learning environment and help to build that ecosystem. Sometimes that's called filter failure. That's Clay Shirky's term, is we're just letting too much of poor quality information come at us, and it's distracting us from what we should actually be focusing on. So those are some of the challenges that I think face us when we try to build this continuous learning, curation powered culture. But fortunately, there are ways that we can help ourselves and help the people in our organizations. And that's where curation, we think, plays a key role in that. What is curation? Well, there are many definitions out there, quite like this one, which is about finding content, grouping it, and organizing it on a specific issue online. And the main thing that Rohit says you should do about this is do it continually. This is an everyday activity to help you stay up to date, to keep scanning what's out there, making good choices about what the most relevant content is, and then bringing them into the organization. And I can break down that definition into 3 simple steps. And those are seek, sense, and share. And these are from Harold Jarkey's framework, where he talks about this in a slightly different context, but I think it works really well for curation. So what do we mean by seek, sense, and share? Well, seeking is the whole act of finding content. So I'll break that down for you. So it's about finding relevant, timely, and useful content from the wider web for your audiences. So you need to think about who you want to help to stay up to date, hopefully the whole organization. But many organizations that work with us will start with certain audiences. That might be a sales audience, or a leadership audience, or a technical team, or customer facing teams. And think about, well, what is it that they want? They want to continuously learn. They want to stay up to date. How do they want to do that? Do they want to see the best videos on a particular topic? Do they want podcasts? Do they want articles from certain sites and sources that they trust? How do you make sure that you put a good filter on what they want to see, so that there's an organized stream of content available to them? And then use tools to help you go and seek. The good thing for all of us working in L&D is we don't have to then go to Google or another search engine or LinkedIn or Twitter to find this content. Tools like ours at Anders Pink can help to automate that process for you and help you to do that on scale using machine learning and algorithms. And we'll show you how that works in a moment. So that's that seeking activity, is finding the relevant content. Once you've found it, this is where humans play a key role in the curation process. So machines can help you to aggregate and surface content. Only humans can really make sense of content. So obviously that means reading it, listening to it, watching it, whatever format it might be in, and asking yourself, well, what does this mean? Why is this relevant to our organization, our team? What can we say about this to provide some extra context for it? So that might be adding just a little comment saying, found this piece of content, looks like our competitors are doing something interesting. What's our response to that? And that's how you kind of start to open a discussion in the organization and build what's sometimes called collective intelligence, or a culture of contribution. Bring other people into the conversation, everybody working together to make sense of a good set of content that is being carefully sought out and brought into the workflow. So that's that sense-making activity. And then finally sharing it. If you're going to go to the effort, obviously, of making sense of something and seeking it out, you want to put it in the easiest place for people to find it. Remembering back to those points we were making earlier about, we want the ecosystem to be seamless. We don't want people to have to go off to yet another platform or another tool to find this content. We want to bring it into the flow of work. And that's going to be different for everybody. We all have slightly different setups in our organization. Probably have a learning platform. You may also have a tool like Slack or Microsoft Teams or an intranet or somewhere else where people spend a lot of time working and collaborating. Those are great places to bring in curated content so that they're in the flow of work. There's no separation, there's no friction for learners to have to go off somewhere else to find it. So think about where the eyeballs are, to borrow a phrase from our marketing friends, is make it easy for people to find it. And then how you do the integration, you want that to be automatic. You don't want to have to copy and paste links from one place to another. APIs and integrations make this really easy to do. And then it's about that hard human thing, but the thing we all have to do is make a habit of it. Again, this is a continuous activity. If you want to continuously develop your skills, you want to be doing this every day. And whether that's just starting with, say, 10 minutes, I will look at 1 or 2 pieces of content today. I will comment on one of them and I will share one of them with my friends and my colleagues. Over time, that builds up to a great habit over the course of a year. So that's the whole concept of seek, sense, share, how curation helps to power continuous learning. It's enough of me talking about it. Let's actually show you what it looks like. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Michelle here, who's going to take you through how we use Anders Pink to do that seek, sense, share. And then we're going to show you how it plugs into learning platforms like Totara. So Michelle, all yours.
Thanks, Stephen. I'm a bit dark because it's very sunny here today, I'm pleased to say, but I think you just about make me out. Right, so I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to talk you through how the Anders Pink app works with you. It works for the different users that will log on to Anders Pink. Just make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm also going to talk you through kind of a bit about the tech and how we curate content, and without going into too much detail, but so how you can appreciate how Anders Pink adds value over and above, let's say, just Googling something, for example, which would be the obvious route to finding curated content from the web. So what you can see here is the Anders Pink app, and all of these tiles are feeds of content that have been curated and are based on a series of settings, which we'll run through in a few minutes. So what we do is when we go out and we look for content from the web, we're actually looking for content that's good for learning. And something that's good for learning or good for keeping you up to date or educating you wouldn't include something like a home page or an About Us page or a careers page. So our algorithms are actually going out to a white list of sources that we've curated through various methods to look for content that we deem good for learning. So the page has a structure, and we're looking for certain criteria within the page in order to say, is this a good piece of content or is it a bad piece of content? If it meets our criteria, then we index it within our database, and then the process that I'm going to take you through in a moment using the Anders Pink app is where you can then search our database using different filtering methods to curate that content into briefings or feeds of content. So the people that use the Anders Pink app within an organisation, or a partner of ours, of course, if they're providing a service, would be a content curator or a subject matter expert, and they would define all of the settings within the briefings in order to create a very specific feed of content for your audience. So if I just draw back to what Stephen was talking about around seek, sense and share, this is the thinking that you would apply when you go into Anders Pink and you then start to define the settings to curate your content. So what you're seeing now is a briefing, and this briefing you can filter on different time periods. So you can see how much content was published in the last 24 hours, 3 days, etc. We go back 3 months because we are focused on recent and relevant content. So if you think about digital learning as a whole, when you create a digital learning course, if it's on a fast moving topic, it can very quickly get out of date. That's very costly to maintain as an organisation. An alternative is to think about, could we curate a pathway? Could we curate some content to complement some other learning that we're doing within our organisation? And this is the process to do that. So to access the content, you simply click on the link and it takes you out to the original source, which is what you can see here. We have many different sources within the database. So this briefing is put together using a general list, but you can define your own list, which means that content will only come from sources that you have specified. So let's look at how you go about doing that. So we're going to create a simple briefing for this demo, and I'm going to create it on leadership because it's a very nice, easy topic for everybody to understand. So leadership is a very broad topic, and there's many different facets that sit within leadership. There may be soft skills or hard skills, but for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on coaching and mentoring. But first of all, I'm going to explain how the algorithm is working in the background. So what we've done is we've added in our topic, which is leadership, and the content that's coming through here now all has leadership within the title. So what we're saying to the Anders Pink database is only show me content that mentions leadership within the title. And then we're saying now only show me content that also mentions either mentoring or coaching. So if we look at the content coming through in the preview in a moment, when it catches up, you'll see that we've got leadership and coaching, and then somewhere down here there'll also be some mentoring content. So this is a way of effectively taking a big pool of content and starting to narrow that pool down. You're sensing, you're listening to your audience, you're understanding what they're going to do with this content. Is it complementing something? Are they updating themselves? Are they staying up to date with some developments within their sector? And then you're applying the topics and the necessary further filter by words in the settings within the briefing. We can also add negative keywords because, of course, there's lots of different contexts to many things we want to filter content on. So you can perhaps add something along the lines of, I'm not interested in courses or conferences, for example. So you can add those in, and that will remove any content that mentions those further filter by words within the title. And then, as I've already mentioned, you can start to be very specific about where the content comes from. So this is our general business list that we're currently drawing from. However, if you wanted to, you could just say, show me content from my list and only my list. So as you can see here now, what we're doing is we're only filtering content from LinkedIn, or you can combine your list and our list, so that you get a more varied content come through. And you can also decide to block certain domains if you're using a wider list. So that gives you complete control over the content that's coming through, and you can save that. And when you save it, you get the view that we started with. So if I go back into this digital transformation one, then this is the content filtering through over this time period. So what you can also do is, if you want a bit more control over the content that you are then filtering through into a platform. So this is I mentioned that the people that use the Anders Pink platform are the curators, the administrators, the subject matter experts, but the end users will consume this content in a different platform. So that could be Totoro, or it could be Microsoft Teams, or it could be an intranet. It could be any number of different platforms, essentially. Anders Pink has a full API. It also has plugins. We also use JavaScript for a very quick integration, and Ricard and Eric can give you a bit more information on that if you'd like it. But essentially, the live briefing is live exactly as it suggests. So it's updating every day with new content that meets the settings of your briefings. Whereas a saved folder is essentially a permanent repository or a knowledge base where you can add content either from a briefing or from the wider web, if it's an article that you found through perhaps doing a Google search or clicking on a link within a newsletter, for example. You can add that content either, I'll show you how it works from Anders Pink. So this is the way you simply bookmark the content and add that to the folder. There's no time period on content within a saved folder, so it can go back further than 3 months. And then just move my Zoom window. You can also download the Chrome extension, and this is the method which enables you to add content from other sources into a saved folder. So you follow the steps and you can add that content in. So what that means is, if it's a topic that's sensitive, or you want to hand pick the content because it's complementing a learning pathway or some pre-work or post-work or any number of different use cases, this is a really good method of curating content with a more of a human overview, you could say. Okay, so I think I've covered everything. Can you think of anything else, Stephen?
Did you manage to show comments there just as you were adding in?
Comments would be good, exactly that, because you can pull those into Totoro, so that's definitely worth mentioning. Yep. So within save folders or within live briefings, you can add a comment to an article. and then that will pull through. So essentially what you're doing is you're adding context to the content that you've curated in line with wherever it's feeding into within the learning system or platform that you're integrated with.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michelle. That's really, really helpful to see that overview. So hopefully that brings to life for you that whole activity of seeking content by creating a briefing, making sense of it, obviously, by looking at the content, adding your comments, saving it to folders, and then sharing it. So how do you share it? Well, let's show you how that works inside Totara. So let me just go back into my full screen mode here. Seeing that okay? So the key way of bringing content from Anders Pink into Totara, fortunately for everybody, there's no coding or complicated HTML involved. It's a plugin. So we've built a very standard plugin that works within Totara. For those of you who are Totara administrators, it uses the block functionality within Totara. So the workflow is you make briefings or save folders in Anders Pink, just as Michelle showed you there, on any topic that you want, or you can choose from a set of predefined briefings that we've made, about 150 of those. Then you send it, you use an API key to send it over to Totara using the block. Then those can be either those live briefings or save folders. And then you just drop it into Totara wherever you want to using the plugin. So there's no coding involved. There's no single sign-on. Your end users within Totara don't have to access Anders Pink at all. They just consume the content directly within Totara. It works, as I say, using the block. So this is just a screenshot of what the block looks like within Totara. So all you do is you give the block a name. You say, this is what I want to call this feed of content. You choose whether it's a live briefing or a saved folder. You set a time period, and there's a few configuration options for how you want it to display, how many articles you want to show, and so on. But really, really simple to use. And Ricard, I think you've put this to the test by dropping it into a Totara that you've created. Do you want to maybe comment on that?
Yeah, this is, as I think you all know, here Xtractor was recently acquired by Semcon Group, and this is work in progress. It's going to be Semcon's internal Totara for Semcon Academy, and on the front page on the dashboard you will have both English and Swedish Anders Pink content, and of course that can be different pieces of content, different briefings for different audiences using Totara's standard functionality. So for engineers that work for Semcon and are into AI and blockchain, that can appear. For broader groups that are interested in digital transformation or digitalizing, that content will appear.
That's great. And I think as you've shown another type of layout here as well.
Yeah, and there would be an example of the extremely interesting topic of GDPR, which we all love, but as an example of how it could be sort of keeping a course up to date and adding additional relevant content to the sort of traditional e-learning.
That's great. Yeah, I think you've shown them the few examples. You can either have it on a home page or for a specific audience page, or within a particular course area within Totara or
yeah. One place where we think it will be really relevant is when Totara has a great functionality related to dashboards and audiences, and typically Totara knows your job role, your organization, your position, etc. So we can actually easily configure audience-specific dashboards, which might relate to training content, but can also, of course, be the place where you have up-to-date, relevant articles generated via Anders Pink.
Yeah, that's a great thing. It's a great example. So thank you for putting those together, and great to see some content coming through in Swedish as well. We want to show you just how a few people have used it. So as we mentioned at the start, we at Anders Pink, we're all about integrating into the ecosystem, and that can be whatever platform you want it to be. So obviously Totara, as we focused on today, but a very wide range of LMSs, LXPs, but also tools like Slack, Workplace, Facebook, Microsoft Teams, and so on as well. But we're really proud of the work that Lars at Scania has done, and he's been waiting very patiently while we talk on here. So Lars, I would love to hand over to you and hear a little bit about how you've embraced curation at Scania. So I will stop sharing and let you talk. So welcome, Lars. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Sorry for the frog in my throat. So let me make sure that I'm sharing the right screen. I will share that one. And thanks so much. Do you see my slide? Yes, you should
Yes, we
be
do.
able to see that. Yeah. So thanks a lot once again for having me on this. There we are. In this webinar. Really excited to share our experience. I work at Scania Academy, and I'm a so-called learning expert in the learning expertise group. Really nice title, I think. A couple of years ago, or rather, yeah, I'd say four or 5 years ago, we saw some of those drivers that you, Stephen, mentioned in the beginning of this webinar. The speed of business is increasing. We're facing digital transformation all over the board. Huge technology shift, especially for a transport industry as ours, and a veritable explosion of knowledge and information, as well as the half-life of knowledge. So we realized, well, learning has to change, and the way we drive learning has to change. So it's not only about continuous learning, it's about continuous reskilling within the job that you have. And our first approach to this was that you see as on the left, to set up topic-specific learning portals. And a key point here is that they are owned by the business. They're not driven or managed or run by Academy. We set up the tools, the working flow, the ways of working. We train the business to maintain and drive their own learning portal. So it's not a matter of involving SMEs from the business. It's a matter of handing over ownership to them, because we can never just ask them what content do you need and then do everything centrally. We will never catch up with the speed of business. The relevance of new content, the needs, they know it better. Why go through us? So we're handing over ownership of these portals. We hand over the ownership to the business themselves and train them to run them. These portals are built on our intranet, but they're integrated with our with our LMS. So already setting up a portal is an exercise in curation. These portals have content from our LMS, has external content, YouTube clips, web pages, what have you, whatever is relevant for the area. And they're maintained every week, every day by the portal owners. And quite soon after starting this, we discovered Anders Pink. I'm really happy we did, because this was yet another tool we could put in the hands of the portal owners to make the curation work much more efficient. We don't link the API to a briefing itself. We link it to a saved articles folder. I don't know, Michelle, if you actually talked about that, but we add on a layer of manual contextual curation to make it more relevant. And I'd like to show one of the portals where what it looks like when it's up and running. So here you have the portal on the topic of digital transformation. It's run by the Digital Officers Network at Scania. And as a visitor to the portal, you can filter the content in here 6 different subtopics, but also you can, on the first page itself, access external inspiration in the area of digital transformation. And we put powered by Anders Pink, just to give you some more branding, Stephen. And the API allows us to control how many topics, how many articles are shown. Is it 4, 7, or 10? Actually, we're adding now that you can access up to 25 of the latest. So the user, him or herself, can actually toggle between how many articles are shown. Come Corona, we realized with these portals that you know, they're not mature yet. They are our own version of learning experience platforms, but they're very much smorgasbord. Still a lot of content, even with the help of curation. We are still publishing a smorgasbord, a nice smorgasbord of content. So we had plans to set up some more, paths, recommended flows for visitors to the different portals. Come Corona, we had to fast forward that. And we introduced something that we call learning playlists. It kind of recommends a best order or sequencing of content. And we launched 6 different learning playlists around strategic areas, digital transformation being one. So on the left, you can see what this looks like when you enter the portal and you look for a playlist. This is an excerpt or a cutout from that playlist. You can see I started here with number 2, number 3, customer experience is the new brand. That's a web article. And then we've interspaced in the playlist, we've woven in reflections for group exercises, and they take you to our LMS community specifically for this playlist. So we enable and encourage social learning inside the playlist. Some of these contents are from Anders Pink, or they can be internal content. But we find that it's important to really put down effort to contextualize and scanify the content. Even though it's curated, it's still not scanified, if that's a word. So in summary, topic-based learning portals owned by the business, not by us. That's key. From smorgasbord to playlists and enhanced with the Anders Pink service platform. And I'd say when it comes to curation, the selection of content is what people generally think about. That's curation, but it's not just that. That's the small piece. The big piece is contextualizing and making it relevant. And that's really why it has to be owned by the business. Only they can do it. We can't do it for them. So it changes the purpose of the central learning L&D department to become an enabler and a support function, not the house of courses and let us curate for you. That's not the way we do it. And then with the social learning community, especially in Corona times, is crucial. So that you're not home alone with your screen. You have to have the social contact with other learners. So that in a nutshell is where we're at right now. And I'll stop there and hand over to you, Stephen.
Thanks so much, Lars. It's such a fantastic example. Really appreciate you taking us through that journey. I think it's really interesting that you have empowered the business to perform the seek, sense, share activity. It makes total sense. As you say, they're going to know their context and the environments that they want to operate in far better than anybody else will. And I think you've added a 4th step there. It's seek, sense, share, scanify. Let's add a 4th S to our methodology, certainly for you. So that is brilliant. I noticed a question was coming through in the chat. Someone was asking which platform you have developed within. So these learning portals that you've developed, is that an in-house technology, or I think it's an external one?
Well, it's an in-house technology, but built on top of a platform provided by Sight Vision, a Swedish company that serves many different, mainly government, many organizations with intranet solutions. So we have special modules built for this, and we're very close to them in that work.
That's great, and it's great to see a really wide variety of topics that you're curating on as well. I think you're absolutely right. That selection is only one step. It's that contextualization, making it really relevant to people. That's what makes the big difference. But yeah, really appreciate you sharing that. So thank you so much. I'm sure people are going to follow up with you with questions about how you did it, Lars. So you can share your magic offline with people afterwards as well.
Yeah, you're welcome to them. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. No, that's great. So we're so proud of that great example, and Lars and his team at Scanning have done such a terrific job of integration. Lots of different flavors of integrations that you can do. So this is another example also in Total for Cat Marine, so engineering company. This is sales facing portal where they need to keep their sales teams up to date on what's happening in their sector. So those of you in sales will know it's so important to know if your clients merge or acquire or do something, or your competitors do, you need to know about it pretty quickly. So this is an example where they use So to contrast it from the example that Laura shares, they're using live briefings, so they update automatically in the platform rather than saved folders. So you have to, I think, consider for your audience, do I want a live feed of content automatically coming in here, or do I want to do the more in-depth selection and contextualization work that Lars and the team at Scanning are doing? And I think it's different use cases for different audiences. Some people just need to know immediately if something happens and there's no need for contextualization around it. Other audiences, perhaps leadership, more technical audiences, need a little bit more context coming through, but you have that choice, and you can display both, obviously, side by side if you want to as well. That's an example from Cat Marine, helping to keep the audiences up to date. Mitchells and Butlers, which is, they own lots of pubs and restaurants in the UK and Ireland, have about 25 different topics integrated into their social learning platform, which is powered by Totara. For them, it's all about, again, keeping up to date, heightening the learning experience for learners, and to go beyond courses. And we hear this a lot. This is about helping us to, as I'm going to use that phrase again that you used, Lars, that you don't have to be the house of courses as the learning and development team. You can say, we have a lot more in our toolkit that we can offer you. We can help to bring in real-time content from around the web and empower you to do it for yourself as well. So those are all Totara examples we showed there. As we said at the start, it doesn't just have to be your learning platform. It can be elsewhere as well. So we've got lots of clients who use Slack or Microsoft Teams or Yammer or Workplace by Facebook, and you can bring Underspink into those as well. So if you've got a sales channel where you regularly chat or exchange or collaborate, bring in a feed of content on news from our top 5 competitors or what our clients are up to, drop it straight into the relevant channel, and then you can chat within that channel, save it, share the content, all the good things that you do in those collaboration channels. So, going back to that point made earlier, go where your audience is. Where is the most natural place for this content to live within your ecosystem? You can drop it in there. So what's the benefit of doing this? Hopefully we've talked about some of the points along here, but some facts we wanted to share from one of our clients, Hitachi Rail, again, a Totara client. And they've really done a job similar to what you've expressed, Lars. It's just they've switched their modes from saying we don't just default create courses or commission courses. We bring in curated content as well. So they move from saying whatever your problem is, a course is the answer, to saying we have other ways of answering this question now. If you want to continuously learn and develop your skills, 25% of their content is now curated from the web. Big saving for learning and development time and budget. As you can imagine, the effort of creating briefings, making selections of content is far lower than building any learning module or a blended learning module from scratch or buying one. So there's some cost and time savings there, but also there's a cultural change. And that is about moving the organization. As Lara said, it's about empowering individuals to say, you don't have to wait for a course to be delivered to you to learn. There's always something available for you. And if you invest, as they say, 5 to 10 minutes a day, that helps us turn into a learning organization that's continuously developing over time. Conscious of time, just a few more final things to say. We've shown you a lot about how you create a briefing from scratch, and you can absolutely do that in Underspink, but we have also put together what we call bundles. So these are about 150, actually closer to 200 now, I think, Michelle, of briefings that are predefined for you. So they're on topics like leadership and management, HR, sales and marketing, key skills in demand, technology, and so on. Those are available for you to use as a baseline. You can use them as is, or you can change them. You can say, I'm going to take this sales briefing, but I'm going to change it for my organization by adding my preferred sites and sources or changing the keywords, but they help you to get started really, really quickly. And obviously you can create custom briefings alongside those as well. And something that we wanted to offer you today, and Eric has kindly put his hand up to be your point of contact for this, is to give you a free set of those briefings. So on digital transformation and HR and learning, we've got a bundle of briefings ready for you to use, absolutely free for 3 months. You can use them natively within Underspink, as Michelle showed you, but really importantly, obviously, in everything we spoke about today is bringing it into your ecosystem. So we're including the free integration within Totara, so using that Totara plugin, which I believe is going to be translated into Swedish as well, which should help even more. But hopefully that would help you to get started and help you get an experience of what this curated content can do within your ecosystem. And Eric's details are there, and we'll drop them into the chat as well. If you want to get in touch with Eric at any time, he will help you set up. I think that's everything we wanted to cover today, and we wanted to allow a few minutes for any questions that are coming through as well. So do let us know if there's anything that you want us to cover. I know there was a question about languages. So in terms of curating content in multiple languages, we're running a languages program at the moment at Anders Pink to help to recreate all those bundled briefings into different languages, and to also add multi-language capabilities. So yes, that's coming soon, and we're well on our way to producing content in multiple different languages. And that language program continues to evolve over time as well. Looking through the chat, I think we've been answering some of the questions as people have asked them as well. So yes, the plugin block will be available to all of Xtractor's Totoro customers. Thanks for clarifying that. And I know there were some Swedish questions, which Eric, you very kindly saved me the embarrassment of trying to translate on the fly as well, which was great. Anything else, Ricardo, Eric?
Yeah, big thank you to Lars. Great presentation. And sort of, we use some sort of, I don't know, buzzwords, I guess, like learning ecosystem. What does it really mean? But I think to summarize it, it could be as simple as go beyond courses. And it's no longer not only courses, it's no longer only the LMS. It's sort of finding the learners where they are and provide them with what they need when they need it. And learning in the flow of work as another buzzword, I guess. I had one thing I was thinking of. We haven't really, I think we have a lot of attendance from the public sector here in Sweden, government and municipalities and so on. My feeling is that this would be as relevant for that sector as for corporate sector.
Absolutely. I mean, we certainly have experience in the public sector for really similar things. In fact, in the UK at the moment, there's a really interesting program going on about how do we, back to that earlier point about reskilling with what's happening to so many industries with coronavirus at the moment. There is going to be a big reskilling exercise that's going to be accelerated by the underlying changes in the economy. So there's a major public program going on at the moment about how do we reskill people for jobs in retail and leisure that may not be coming back. So I think this is going to push reskilling really high on the governmental agenda, not just in the UK, but I think globally. And I think curated content, helping people to continuously develop, is going to play a big part in that as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, so the reason that they are so keen on curated content for this reskilling program is because of the speed to market. So they can effectively build a whole program to support the newly unemployed who haven't perhaps been unemployed for many, many years and need skills in preparing for an interview, or CV writing, preparing for an interview, answering competency-based questions within interviews, all of which there's lots and lots of content available, and it's very easy to curate. So using Anders Pink in conjunction with a platform for these users, they can very quickly provide them with the support they need in order to get back into work quickly.
Another question from me then. How many people at an organization would typically be the ones actually using the app, sort of doing the curation and sometimes adding it to manual folders or giving comments?
Really interesting question. I guess it partially depends on the scale on which the organization is operating. I don't know, Lars, you might be able to answer that from Scania's perspective.
Yeah, I can do that. So we have an account now that allows us to have forget the number, but as many curators as there are portals, learning portals. So there'd be now I'd say 8 or 10, something like that, people involved in curating. We don't have Anders Pink integrated in all the portals yet. That's a decision each portal owner takes.
And then as a curator, you would have sort of a daily habit of doing the curation in the morning, or
we try. I mean, that's a culture change as well. I mean, these are people who are not normally engaged in learning and development, and we're pushing them into that profession, helping them along the way. And we certainly tell them spend at least half an hour to an hour every week. That's the minimum that you should spend in curation.
Yeah. And that's it. As you know, as you say, that's about building a new habit and a new skill for professionals as well. But that's that half an hour a week, and hopefully the fact that they have curated content coming through in the live briefings that hopefully makes it easier than saying, where am I going to get this content from this week? Is that you have that feed of content to make your selections from.
Yeah, maybe I should also mention you have also an app for Google. So aside from the briefings, you can actually, if you find something, happen to come across something that you're Googling, if you have this app, you can just save it down to your briefing or to your saved articles folder.
That's right. Yeah, that's a Chrome extension. Yeah, so you can just grab anything from the web and drop it in if you happen to be out there browsing. Yeah, for sure. That's good mention.
Yeah, so from Xtractor side, we are really excited, as you could hear. What the next steps? Please reach out to Eric if you are interested in a free trial, or if you have questions related to pricing or your Totara version or other systems. You might have a site vision as well and want it there as well. We try to answer all those questions. And of course, when and if you want to set it up for real, we would love to be a part of helping you and guiding you to do that successfully.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're here to support as well. If you've got any, we're working really close with you guys to help with all of that. And if you've got any more technical questions about Totara or about Anders Pink, contact us. You can save the Totara questions for Rickard and Eric, but yeah, really happy to support you. So I think we're there, and with a few minutes to spare, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for joining. You will get a link to the recorded webinar, which will have all of our contact details as well. So really appreciate your time this morning, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Tack så mycket. Ta hand om er. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.